Hello and welcome to Steve and Dave's 50 Years Ago this month. This is our year-end edition, second part, volume two. We're going to be talking about the year 1974 and in this portion, the months July through December.
Yeah.
So, Steve, July, beginning of July,
Well,
what,
I've got
what do we have
something
to
in
say about that?
early July. I've got how about Wimbledon, 1974.
Wimbledon's always good.
It's so here we go. So on the women's side, the America's darling Chris Everett won the singles, beating Olga Morozova in straight sets. Then the next day, Jimmy Connors, I'm not sure it was America's sweetheart, but flying the flag, won the men's singles, whipping Ken Rosewall of Wimbledon. What's part of the intrigue was that they were at this point engaged. This is the Sports
Is
Illustrated
that
the week
right?
after. Yeah, that's right. So they were engaged for a time. They
Okay.
were slated to be wed, I believe, in November of the year, although that did not happen. They never became a wedded couple. But for a time, a few months at least, they were sort of the it couple, not just
A
in terms of
couple
tennis,
of
but also
tennis. All right.
so it's Connors and Everett would go on to have a great deal more success during the 70s. But I think you can say on some level this was kind of their zenith. So you have the dynamic American duo claiming Wimbledon in early July. What else do we have going on in music
July
and culture?
3rd, for example. Up for the Downstroke was released by Parliament, the
Yes. Okay.
band's second album.
Oh,
Their first,
George Clinton. Yeah.
the first for fledgling Casablanca Records. And it was the title track that was their first chart hit. This was one of the 74 albums, greatest albums from 1974, as far as Rolling Stone is concerned.
Yeah, I think Parliament, Parliament slash Funkadelic, remarkably influential. Maybe success on the pop side kind of eluded them, but even today, their work is sampled a great deal, and yeah, made a huge impact.
Well, and this Parliament was just one of Lynn's
Ah,
projects, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
incredibly prolific. Yeah, yeah.
Man, he was just, yeah, he was everywhere. So
And it
yes,
has to be said, right? And it has to be said, this is an era where that kind of productivity was rewarded, right? I mean, there were avenues to which you could record and distribute, and so if you're willing to put your nose to the grindstone, you had a fair amount of talent, you could get a lot done.
that's right. And again, to reiterate, this is a point where um, this type of music direction, funk,
Oh
now
yeah,
has a new market, which is the
that's
disco in disco
100%. I
techno
think that
form.
is absolutely right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
hugely important.
they're getting on. The next day, Barry White married his Love Unlimited lead
Oh,
singer,
this gets complicated down the
Brookie
road.
James. Well, yeah, what's that about? Don't stick your pen in company ink. I don't know.
Oh, careful, careful. But yeah, it's yeah, this is where Barry White's personal life begins. I think unravel would be the word. Everything goes to hell in 75, but yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Um, on July 11th, Little Kim was born. So in a few decades, we're going to be hearing from her.
My goodness. Yes, for sure.
On the
I have,
19th,
go ahead. Sorry.
19th, Neil Young releases On the Beach. It's his fifth studio album, the second of the so-called Ditch trilogy.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Ditch?
Well, go ahead. No, you
All
go.
right.
You go ahead.
Uh, After Harvest, especially after Heart of Gold, Heart of Gold was massive, right? It just shot him to the top of the charts, and
Maybe it was too big for him.
it was too big for him. He was not comfortable there. He
Not at
said
all.
he said, quote, um, he said, Heart of Gold, quote, put me in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Traveling there soon became a bore, so I headed for the ditch.
Yep.
A rougher ride, but I saw more interesting people there, end quote. So this is the second of the Ditch trilogy.
Do you have the other albums there? Is Tonight's the Night one of them?
Tonight's the Night was actually recorded before this album, but it was released afterwards. So I think it was considered the third Ditch trilogy. And no, I can't tell you.
He has to be, yeah, okay. So he has to be, I mean, he's an amazing performer and, force of nature, all that. But he has to be extraordinarily frustrating to deal with, right? I mean, from a
Oh
kind of
yeah. Oh yeah,
commercial
I think
perspective.
infamously so.
I mean, my Lord.
It's just very, very willful. And um,
Yeah,
if
willful.
Young
Yeah.
wanted something, Neil Young would do it, and damn the torpedoes, right?
Oh man, that is truer words never spoken there. I mean, and that's, oh yeah.
So yes, I think a difficult person to collaborate with.
Oh God, yes. Yes.
Um,
I
but
mean,
I've
yeah,
talked about the top 74 albums of
right.
1974 by Rolling Stones. They put this at number one. And
Hmm.
in the article,
Well,
they said it's not only the number one album in 1974, it's Neil Young's best album. Wow.
no, come on.
All right. I think that's probably
Mm,
overshooting the goal.
a little, but okay, but it's in
But
the
clearly,
conversation. Is yeah.
clearly they really thought this was a
Well, yeah, clearly. Um, but yeah, interesting. The ditch. That's
also
great.
on the 19th through the 21st was the Ozark Music Festival held in
This
Sedalia,
is
Missouri.
yes, 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 yes. This is
And it
quite a
had a
thing.
crowd that was estimated at up to 350,000 people. So, like
In the
almost Woodstock,
almost
Woodstock
Woodstock.
of Mid-America,
And yes, right. And unlike Woodstock in the middle of freaking nowhere.
in the middle of freaking nowhere. And yeah, bluegrass. I when I hear Ozark music, I think bluegrass.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. This is, I mean, right.
So
Mhm.
you're talking about
Historically, yeah.
just bluegrass, folk, and so on, just attracting an enormous concert crowd. On the 22nd, another huge album fulfilling this first finale.
Oh yeah, there we go.
A
Easy for you to
mouthful.
say. But yeah,
Stevie Wonder, his
I mean,
17th studio album, and
it's amazing.
a
It's
future Grammy winner, I believe,
yes. Yeah, I think that's
um,
right.
and also on the list of the 74 best albums. So
Oh yeah, part of that imperial stretch from Wonder, and you could do no wrong in the 70s, particularly the early to mid 70s. Whew, man. Um, I have something for the 25th.
let's hear it.
Dateline, Washington, in a 5-4 ruling, the Supreme Court of the United States rules that busing students from the suburbs to the inner city violates their civil rights, putting an effective end to the busing campaign, which had been a tool used by many school districts and cities across the United States to desegregate schools. An incredibly controversial
Massively unpopular.
plan,
Yeah.
largely because these were white students who were being bused, which was the case. This was a particular case came from Detroit, where primarily white students from the suburbs were being bused into inner city, primarily black schools. There was a fair amount of pushback, and the Supreme Court. I mean, this basically puts an end to busing as a kind of tool. Um, During the 70s, I mean, cities just came apart at the seams, most notably Boston, based upon opposition to busing. But really, past, I mean, this is kind of the end, kind of the swan song for this kind of technique.
Well, and the fact remains that a really effective and non-invasive means of desegregation just has been very elusive.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
Yes, that's
tool that's
absolutely right.
incredibly important. Our society needs it, especially back then. It was incredibly important. But how do you implement it? How do you achieve
Well,
that
I think
goal?
that's always been, like you say, it's been elusive. And busing was believed to be an effective tool, but it was, and I guess it was in so much that it did in fact desegregate schools, but it displaced young people miles and miles and miles from their home, and so it was. And I know a few people who grew up in the 70s who were part of these busing efforts, and their memories of this are extremely raw.
Mm,
I mean, they just, it just was a hard time for all involved.
yeah. Yeah.
So yes, so there we go. Yeah, so I do have one more thing in July, in late July,
How late?
29th.
All right. We may have the same thing, so let's hear it.
Oh, there's no way we have the same thing. Well, maybe. So on the 29th, the Episcopal Church, do we have the same thing?
No.
No. The Episcopal Church um, ordained ordained three women, known as the Philadelphia 11. Um, a handful of Episcopal priests, I guess you would say, went rogue, followed through it, and ordained these women. This was immediately seen as heresy by the Episcopal authorities in the United States, but it got the conversation started in a very profound way. The Episcopal Church eventually moved in this direction. In 1977, actually. They began to open the door for women to serve in leadership posts. Now, this will eventually cause a massive split in the Episcopal Church in the United States, and but it's fair to say that Episcopals were really out in front on this, and this particular moment is seen as quite historic, not only in the context of American religious history, but also in terms of then history of women. Again, this is all happening at roughly the same time as Equal Rights Amendment and all of this, and so and it was happening very quickly. And again, for many people, it was happening too quickly. But the Philadelphia 11 on the 29th of July were ordained.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Um, the other thing that happened on the 29th was that Cass Elliot, Mama Cass,
Yeah, yeah.
died in London after having performed at two sold-out concerts at the Palladium. Um, this was
Yeah.
at, I think, Nielsen's apartment or flat, as we say in London.
I think that's right. This is the infamous flat.
The infamous flat because
Oh, geez, who else?
Mike Elliott, who drummer Keith Moon, died there just 77, just a
Yeah,
few
I
years
think
later.
that's right. I think that's
Same
right.
bedroom, maybe even the same bed.
Oh,
Um,
oh, not the same bed. Oh, come on.
you think they
Well,
replaced
maybe
the bed just because Mama Cass died in it?
I do actually. Yes, I do. I
They may
think so. I
have.
think that
They may
they
have.
may have.
It may be a little bit creepy sleeping in a bed with somebody
At
else.
least, uh, you
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But but she is just at a time when her career is she's broken away, right, from
Yes.
that mamas and papas images. She's becoming a kind of staple of American variety shows. She has recorded a very interesting album with Dave Mason. There's a lot of things that are happening in her life
And she had some
that
up
are
and down. She had
incredibly
some up and downs during that time.
oh, no question.
but she was, yeah, at a real high point here
Yeah, she was on the ascendant. Yeah, yeah, she was. It's
and was in a great mood. She called
yeah.
Michelle Phillips that
Oh
night
yeah,
to talk about how great she was feeling, how wonderful the concerts had been, and so on and so forth. And then the next morning, Michelle Phillips gets a call saying she's dead.
unbelievable,
Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah.
yeah.
And
One other
again,
thing
there's
happened on the
yeah. Go
29th, by
ahead.
the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Neil Peart officially joined Rush.
That's a great story. Where they're trying out drummers, and he brings his drums in like grocery bags or something like that, and
But
yeah, lets them
I
rip.
I think most Rush fans will agree that well, it's like Ringo Starr and the Beatles, right? The Beatles aren't the Beatles until Ringo Starr is their drummer. And
Oh yeah, no question.
I
I
think
mean,
the
yeah,
same
this
thing
is
with Neil Peart. You have to
yeah.
have to
He
have
offers yeah he offers this level of precision and inventiveness,
and
and to say nothing.
sophistication in terms of
Yes, it's just
their songs and their
the
lyrics are just
this is yeah, that's what we're getting to. Yeah, exactly right. They operate. I mean, sometimes it's rather pompous, but they're just in a plane that other bands
yeah.
just don't. Yeah, they just don't operate in. So yeah, fascinating guy.
Do you have anything else for July?
I do not.
Well, I have a couple more things because also released in July, I don't have the dates, but um, 461 Ocean Boulevard.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Eric
this is
Clapton's
yeah,
second solo album. And it hit number one on both the album and singles charts in the US. The singles chart with I Shot the Sheriff, of course. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and so that was an important album for him. Um,
Oh,
I'm leaving it all up to you, Donnie and Marie Osmond.
oh,
It's it's still a family affair, but Donnie is now not singing with the brothers, but for the first time with his younger sister Marie.
and for him, I think this works out very well. I mean, I think that the Donnie and Marie thing, it really climbed to heights that the brothers themselves never really got to.
Well, and in a different, yeah,
Oh, it's in a
beauty.
different but yeah, fair. That's a fair point. But it's they 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 had a certain kind of chemistry.
Yes, and they both attest to that, even now, saying that they were very close and have been. The
Yeah.
album delivered two top 10 hits, the title cut
Yeah.
and Morning Side of the Mountain. So,
Oh, that's
uh,
oh my Lord. That song's horrible.
so it's a gold album, you know.
Yeah, it is a gold album. Yeah, it's a gold album.
Their
I mean,
debut.
there we go. We'll hear more from Donnie Marie in
Last but
future.
not least,
Yes.
Truck Turner. Does Truck Turner say anything to you?
No.
Truck Turner was a blaxploitation movie starring Isaac Hayes,
Oh,
who
he
also
always
did the
wanted to act.
soundtrack. And the Truck Turner soundtrack is one of the top 74 albums of 1974, according to Rolling
Well,
Stone.
Isaac Hayes is awesome.
Isaac Hayes, man, you know, if you're going to have a soundtrack for a blaxploitation film, you can do worse than to have Isaac Hayes.
Yeah, that's probably that's right. No question about that. So does that get us through? That gets us through July.
It's a through July.
So what do you have for early August?
First week of August, Barry White releases Can't Get Enough.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Uh, and a day later, that was on the 6th, the day later, on the 7th, Peter Wolf, leader of the Jay Giles Band, married Faye Dunaway.
You know, that's right. Um, he always kind of bubbled just below the surface, didn't he? Um, but yeah, Faye Dunaway.
Yeah, I always found him a little, I don't know, a bit creepy. I don't know why. I have a hard time articulating
Well, there we go.
in there,
I,
but
I I have to say that I've always found her a little creepy.
Really? Well,
Oh
that
yeah.
a match made in.
Well, perhaps. There we go. Faye Dunaway. Match made.
I've always liked Faye Dunaway, but all right.
I mean, well, I'm no, yeah, just something about her. So I have
Maybe it was the
the
Bonnie thing.
yeah, maybe might have been just a little too much for me or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I so I have something for the eighth and ninth.
Yes.
Some obvious
Now
things. And so,
let me
go
guess.
ahead. Oh God,
Um, it,
let me guess. Let
does it
me
have
guess.
something to do with Nixon?
It might.
Okay.
Oh, oh man, that's incredible. Uh, so on the 8th, of course, in the evening, President Nixon announces his resignation to the American public.
I've never been a
Um,
quitter.
no, I've never been a quitter. But you know, the jig was up a couple of days earlier, right? Leading House Republicans came to the White House to let him know that he did not have the votes to survive an impeachment inquest and trial, and so he resigned. Then at noon on the 9th, Ford takes over. This is an image of the Ford Nixon and the first ladies walking out to the helicopter where Nixon will fly off on his way, giving the peace sign remarkably.
It's smiling
Uh,
broadly. Yeah, it's
yeah,
so great.
I think, I mean, it has to be a sense of relief for him.
Yeah,
I would
yeah, I
think.
suppose so.
I think on some level. But Ford takes over then at noon on the 9th and is you know, put in that really awkward position of being, of course, a president who had never been elected. And that really will dog him through his time in office. But as President Ford would say, our long national nightmare is over. And I guess to some degree that was true. It's I don't know. We've talked about
Yeah,
Nixon.
but there was no closure, was there? Not really.
There was no closure. There was no closure, and Ford sort of the next month sort of made sure that yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway,
Well,
so
yeah,
Nick,
the next month he would sell that as the closure.
yeah, that's right. I mean, that was his. Yeah, that's fair. So Nixon is out. Um, Ford is in.
Indeed. Other things going on musically this month is we have LA band Little Feat's fourth
Oh
album.
yeah. Little George, yeah.
Feats Don't Fail Me Now.
Yep,
This
yep,
was
yep.
the album following Dixie Chicken.
Dixie Chickens. Okay.
Was produced by the band's singer-songwriter guitarist Lowell George,
Mhm.
and it features the Tower of Power horns section and backing vocals by Bonnie Raitt and Emmylou Harris.
Yeah, yeah. Those albums, those first Little Feat albums are really, they're considered just really excellent. And Lil George was great pals with people like Jackson Brown as well. So he was well thought of. He died a young man, but yeah, important albums.
Um, that was, by the way, on the day that Nixon left office, the 9th um,
Well, yeah.
of August. So on the 16th was the Ramones' first appearance at CBGB. And that
That that
would
must
be
have
an
been
association that would go on
that. Oh yeah, right.
very, very
Um,
successful for both entities.
that
Uh,
must have been something.
yes.
That first appearance. That must. I mean, what 10 songs in 22 minutes or something like that? Probably didn't have 10 songs. They didn't even know how to play their instruments,
Oh, yeah, it's an
which was,
incredible
I mean,
story of the
uh,
Ramones and their version of American punk. But we really need to do some maybe a behind the curtains on CBGB too. That's such a huge.
no, totally agree. I mean, it's few places were more important.
You had Blondie playing there. You had Patti Smith,
Yeah.
um, Lou
Well,
Reed, I think.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Talking heads on, yeah, on it
yes,
goes. Yeah.
exactly. It's just about anything that was like new wave or punk was playing at CBGB, and so it was the place place to be if you wanted to hear exciting new music.
Yeah, and as a tiny a venue as possibly imagine. It was just
Tiny
like
and
a post.
dirty. Just
Yeah,
yes.
apparently, like the filthiest
Was.
place, and like those bathrooms were unbelievable. But we should. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, CBGBs.
On the 19th, Pussycats comes out. This is Harry Nilsson's 10th album, produced famously or infamously by John Lennon during the long
Oh,
weekend,
oh,
the lost weekend.
trouble,
Sorry, the lost
tr
weekend.
trouble. Oh boy.
Trouble. But the title Pussycats is kind of an amused reference to yeah, they're being thrown out of the Palladium and no, not the Palladium, sorry,
Oh, the Troubadour.
the Troubadour in LA. And it's just we're just pussycats, you know. We're not we're not troublemakers, we're just pussycats.
Yeah.
But I want to show you something. There's
All right.
the cover has a little a visual pun in it. Here we have the Pussycats, Harry Nilsson, John Lennon, uh, and Nilsson's sitting at a table, and below him there are a couple of alphabet blocks,
I see that. Yeah.
and between them a rug. D rug S. Drugs under the table. For what it's worth. There it is.
These are serious artists. Um, this is quite remarkable. Well, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, cheeky devils and all.
they are cheeky devils. Also on the 19th, the greatest hits compilation so far by CSNNY. Uh,
Mhm. Oh, that's an album that,
yes. Uh,
yeah, that it, and it's got a cover, um,
by
Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell. Cool cover.
It's a cool cover. Yeah.
It shipped gold already.
Oh, I believe that.
Peaked at number one on the top pop albums chart. Um, it was the band's third chart-topping album in a row. My God.
That would be it,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
and that would pretty much be it. But wow, it's
Oh
certified
yeah.
times platinum. Uh,
Oh, this was, yeah, everybody owned this. I mean, we talked about last episode, the Endless Summer from the Beach Boys.
yeah,
This is very much in that same
yeah.
similar kind of vein. I mean, everybody owned this. Everyone owned this album.
And it was the second best-selling album by any configuration of that quartet um, after Deja Vu. Deja Vu sold more, um, but that's the only one that ever did.
Yeah. All right.
Got something for
Yeah.
us in the last week?
I do have a couple of things. So on the 26th, there was a famous American who passed away. The famous American, well, maybe at this point, maybe an infamous American.
Infamous,
And
maybe, yeah.
here we
Kind
go.
of a
And so
mixture.
so here we go. It's Charles Lindbergh
Yeah.
passes on the 26th. Um, Lindbergh has, I mean, he was without question the most famous American in the 1920s, probably the 1930s as well, maybe one of the most famous people around the world. He suffered a great personal tragedy. Well, of course, he flies solo
Well,
across the
wait a
Atlantic.
second. For our young listeners who might not be familiar,
Well,
uh,
I'm building up to that.
what was his great feat?
Well, his great feat is the flight solo across the Atlantic in the
Spirit
in
of
the
St. Louis.
spirit of St. Louis, a feat that people thought was impossible. I have a quick Charles Lindbergh story. In the years leading up to all that, he paid the bills by barnstorming across the United States, and he stopped in a dusty town in Colorado and gave my wife's grandfather
No
a
way.
ride. A ride,
Well,
yeah.
how cool.
But he he also suffered great personal loss when his child was kidnapped from the bedroom.
As
Bruno
a
Richard
baby.
Hauptmann,
Yeah.
yeah, and was tried, convicted, and executed for that crime. Although there's some doubt about, yeah, there's some controversy that surrounds that. But in the 30s, the late 30s and early 40s, Charles Lindbergh became politicized and embraced fascism in Europe, particularly in Germany, and was awarded the Iron Cross by Hermann Goering, and was part of the so-called America First movement, which was a movement to try to keep the United States out of the war. And it was extraordinarily popular, and and it had it. I think it's my contention that without Pearl Harbor, the United States would not have entered, at least sent troops to World War II, because groups like the American First Movement were incredibly effective. But Lindbergh, of course, it didn't look great when we learned what we learned about Hitler and about the Nazi Party. And he had to live with that for the rest of his life. And I think it's fair to say that he was seen as it was problem. He was problematic. He tried to rebound. He still carried himself with a certain kind of grace and elegance, and there was a certain kind of cachet that surrounded him, but he never was really able to remove the stain of his support for the Nazi Party. And he died. I mean, there's just even his obits. I mean, the first line is Spirit of St. Louis. The second line is support for Hitler. So Lindbergh dies on the 26th. On the 27th, I just want to briefly mention, on the 27th, Alaskans voted to move the capital from Juneau to a small town near Anchorage called Willow. And the capital had been in Juneau since the state's founding in the late 50s, but it's a very isolated, difficult place. You can't drive to Juneau. You can only get there by ship and by plane, and a fairly expensive place to live, even by Alaskan standards. And so the idea was to get it closer to a major center like Anchorage. And the state overwhelmingly embraced this initiative. They never moved the capital, however, because the costs of moving it were just enormous. And so it's odd. The capital remains in Juneau, although I think many Alaskans are indifferent to the fact that the capital is there. And they tried to move it once and just couldn't get it done. But that happened on the 27th.
Well,
It's
I'm
really strange.
embarrassed to admit it, but I thought the capital was in Anchorage.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say that out loud. But yeah, so Juneau, right, Juneau is a really remote place. And Anchorage, I mean, every place is remote, but Anchorage is much more accessible, and it makes a lot more sense for the capital to be in Anchorage.
But
Um,
the vote wasn't to move the capital to
to
Anchorage.
No, it was to move it to a smaller community called Willow, which is about 30 miles from Anchorage. Listen,
That seems very strange to
I
me.
don't know. I don't know. I guess this was who, I mean, but all this, came for naught.
All right.
Yeah.
Um, just days later, new skin for the old ceremony, Leonard Cohen album.
Oh God. Oh, that's a terrible name. But
Another one of the 74 best from 74.
oh, Leonard Cohen I mean, he's amazing. He's
He's a very
amazing.
impressive uh, singer-songwriter.
What a
And
what a peculiar guy, however, really
well,
interesting,
um,
distinctive.
slept with Janis Joplin in the
Well,
in
yeah, the Chelsea Hotel.
Chelsea Hotel. Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, he leaves show business, becomes a Buddhist monk, only to discover that his business manager has swindled all of his money. And so he re-enters show business and has a kind of second life as a
Well, if you're a
performer.
Buddhist monk, what do you care about money? I thought that's the whole point of being a Buddhist monk is that money is
Yeah,
material.
yeah, yeah, maybe kind of a test, in fact. So maybe a test that he failed. I don't know, but he just was, he always marched to his own drummer. He came, uh, even his whole entry into show business came late. He was first a poet, quite an accomplished poet, and thought of himself first as a poet, and then realized that he can make more money and have reach more people if he put his songs to music. And so, but fascinating
Well,
figure.
and he has really quite an opus. But the only thing anybody's going to remember him for is Hallelujah, and that's a bit unfortunate.
Hmm.
The only
Yeah, that
thing,
could
the
be.
only thing that 90% of the
Oh, sorry.
of his
I shouldn't have made that sound, but yeah, I mean, that's right. That's right. The other thing about it, Leonard Cohen, I'll never forget when he entered the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, was this his speech where he opens with, I have seen the future of rock and roll." This is the old John Landau line. "I have seen the future of rock and roll," and his name is not Leonard Cohen. Um, so he had a certain sense of humor that was, oh, he's great. Leonard Cohen's great.
also in August, without any definite dates, the Greatest Hits compilation of Alice Cooper was released. Also a really
Oh,
fun album, a fun album.
oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
Verities in Balderdash by Harry Chapin.
A little Harry Chapin, yeah.
And another one of the 74 best of 1974, Merle Haggard presents his 30th album.
What?
That's the title of the album. Um,
Jeez.
30th. And he's just in the middle of his career here.
Oh, oh yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
think prolific would be
I think that's fair. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. I think it's, yeah,
sufficient
an
accurate.
accurate. Yeah,
Wow.
accurate. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Um, from Winnipeg, Canada, we have Bachman Turner Overdrive with Not Fragile.
Oh,
Probably their
it,
high water mark.
I would think that's right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
number one album in the US. It's their third LP. Their lead single, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, tops the US pop chart. It's their first number one hit in the States. It may have been their only number one hit in the States.
That
Uh,
may be true, but one of several top 10 hits, and but they were incredibly
and,
popular.
and like all Canadian bands, of course, their popularity in Canada uh, pretty much eclipses anything that they experience in the US.
Well, geez, that's saying something because they were pretty popular in the US. But yeah,
Yes, yes,
BTO. Yeah.
BTO. So that's what I have for August.
That takes us to September. What do you have anything in the first week of September?
No Other by Gene Clark comes out on the 2nd of September.
There, there's a guy, right, who did everything he could to sort of undercut his own success. He is incredibly well regarded by musicians and songwriters, incredibly well regarded. But there was
Well,
plagued by
well,
demons.
yeah, you can leave groups at a time when where you can see, okay, we're going nowhere. We're going to take a dive as a group. I need to get out and go solo. Or you can leave them at a time shortly before things take off.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, famously with he shot himself in the foot with the birds. But he also was he had an incredible fear of flying to the point where he put himself and other passengers in danger with his reaction. And so, I mean, if you can't fly, you're not going to be able to tour Europe and places. I mean, so just there's a lot that surrounds Gene Clark that was problematic. But again, a kind of musician, songwriter,
And,
songwriter.
seriously, if there's anybody that has a realistic reason for fearing airplanes, it's got to be a rock star, right? Because
Well, certainly in this era.
well, rock stars are just dropping out of the sky all the time. It seems like
Well,
disproportionately more rock stars die in planes than normal
Don't
people.
disagree. Don't disagree. Yeah. Don't
So
disagree. Yeah. So Gene Clark, I mean, God bless him. Died a relatively young man as well. So yeah.
on the 5th, the Jackson Five back with Dancing Machine.
Oh,
Um,
I love it. I know this is not your favorite, but I love it.
um, on the 6th, we hear from the Bay City Rollers with
Oh, yeah.
Rollin'. The Bay City Rollers were going to enjoy a short but immense popularity just a few years later.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the Rollers
Ro
wave,
Roller Mania. Yeah, yeah.
Roller
It was a
Mania,
thing. It
incredible,
was a
and
thing.
yeah, and they were being compared to the Beatles at that point, as other bands have been, and
Well, yeah,
nobody ever. That's it's
no.
the kiss of death to
They
compare
had
a band to the Beatles.
they had that the tartan and those the kind
That's
of short pants, kind of
just a
capri
terrible
pants.
look, just an awful look. But apparently, some prepubescent girls really dug it.
Bay
Um,
City Rollers. Yeah.
anyway, so there's that. Also on the 6th, Nina Persson was born. Ring
Hmm.
a bell?
It does not.
She is the lead singer of the Cardigans, or she would become the lead singer of the Cardigans, obviously,
Okay. Well, there we go.
several decades later.
Well, a handful of our listeners they'll be delighted to learn that.
That was the first week.
Okay, so all right, very good. And so I have a couple things for the 8th. The 8th was a very busy day in very different parts of the country for very different reasons. Um, well, the 8th of September, in terms of American political history, is known for the Nixon pardon for pardon of Nixon. Um, the full unconditional pardon covering the entire time Nixon is president, extending all the way back to 1969. It was the belief that the country could not endure the sight, the spectacle of a former American president being dragged through the courts, and that this was a way for Americans to, finally put this to bed. And again, the notion of closure that you suggested
This is going to
earlier.
be our closure. We need to
It,
finish this chapter and move on and
I think,
start the
yeah,
healing.
start the healing. Start the healing is the phrase. I think it's fair to say that there's been a great shift. I think initially there was great shock and outrage, that the guy got away with it. I think that
I
over time, then,
I remember the pundits um, kind of thinking that this might actually be a very presidential move on his part,
okay,
um,
okay. I
a
think,
very wise move in the end.
yeah, maybe that was, yeah. I mean, I think maybe that was the intelligentsia that initial. I could see, yeah, definitely. I think the wider public, yeah, it wasn't, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were really introduced to the notion of the power of the pardon for the president. I think most people weren't really quite aware that, the pardon power was extended to this extent. Again,
Well,
over
I
time,
think one of the people that was probably very impressed was a young Donald Trump.
oh, good Lord. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, it is the case. So I think that more and more people then over time sort of warmed to the idea that, yeah, that maybe this was, the right move. Again, a kind of presidential move, the kind of notion of healing. And then in recent years, I think it's been seen as something close to a debacle because of it set
A very,
a
very
precedent,
bad president. Yeah.
a very, very bad precedent. And this is sort of a situation that we're living in now. So um, it's a, it's complicated. And I think Jerry Ford, I don't think there's any question that Jerry Ford, well, I guess there is some question as to whether Jerry Ford was operating in a quid pro quo situation.
My
I
feeling is that Jerry Ford was a really honorable guy. I don't think
that
it happened.
that's that's my sense as well. That's my sense as well. But there's always been that kind of hovered over all this. Um, but on the same day, in another part of the country, so brace yourselves. And so, if only you were a young American, right, in 1974, this would, right? So it's Evel Knievel, Robert Craig Knievel. It's the Snake River Canyon jump in Sky Cycle One. Um, okay, so the
With
snake,
with a a jet propelled
Mhm. You know,
motors
you know,
or
you know, you know,
rockets.
you know how it was powered. The fuel or the thrust was created by steam. Yeah,
Steam.
steam, just like the 1890s. So the whole thing. So he,
How on
initially
earth did
said,
he think he was going to get enough thrust from
well,
steam?
he didn't. So he thought, in fact, he was going to die. The They launched a test, and the test, it was a disaster. Didn't go, and but the show must go on. Always the showman.
I
This
thought
was
the point of a test is to see whether or not you're testing the plausibility of
well,
your project.
he was waist deep in debt, and he had, the crowds were there, and the ABC was there to film it, and he just didn't. Well, but he was convinced. So we see him getting into the sky cycle. He was convinced, in fact, he was going to die, and he damn near did. And so the cycle goes off. The chute launches immediately. The sky cycle kind of tumbles toward the river. It lands on a rock, flat rock, right next to the river, and Knievel escapes death. Had the cycle hit the river, it was sunk like a stone. He was not able to get out on his own. It's unbelievable. I mean, why you wouldn't have some sort of eject mechanism? And he would have drowned. But he did survive it. But it was, well, it was a mess. I have to say, though, years later, I traveled. I made my pilgrimage to the Snake River, and the site launch site is still there. And you can climb on top of it. Not the apparatus and stuff, but you can climb on top of the mound that they created for it, and you can look out over. There's just no way in God's green earth this thing was going to work. I mean, there's just no way that was. I mean, it was an impossible kind of thing. But man, the Evel Knievel, I don't know. It's just the audacity of all this is just, I don't know. I had great admiration. I'll just say it this way. Just had great admiration for Robert Craig Knievel, but he lived. But this was the infamous sky cycle jump over the Snake River Canyon on the 8th
Well,
of
it was
September.
basically the shark jump for his career too, right? I mean,
Well, I think that's true. It was the shark jump, although at this point he had been doing this for 15, 20 years. He had broken a zillion bones, all of that, right? And so, I mean, there are no old motorcycle jumpers, but yeah, this was sort of because he was perceived differently, right? Many people saw this as he was a kind of charlatan, that this was a kind of, whatever, bait and switch, all this kind of, choose your phrase, but he was perceived as a kind of faker.
oh,
So, God dang, he almost died.
man,
It was, it's just astounding. So, if you ever, I don't know, the Snake
it's
River
just
area is
imagine
beautiful.
you,
It's
you,
beautiful. You
you
should go
get
check it out.
into this thing thinking, all right, this is it. Uh, Millions of people are going to watch my death now.
Well, this is the thing. When you see, I mean, this is, they lower him into it, and this is that, yeah, this is going to be, his kids are there, his wife. I mean, it's just like they have, well, there are great accounts of this. I mean, it was a debauched episode. People were just drunk off their ass. There was high school bands. The bands were being harassed by drunk spectators. There was all sorts of crazy shit going on. It's just astounding.
Oh,
Um,
man.
but I highly recommend a trip to the Snake River, by the way. It's a beautiful area, but
Well,
you just can't believe it that they tried this. That's what I have for the 8th of September. A
all right,
busy day.
incredible. Well, the next week is pretty big for rock and roll. Four of the 74 best albums of 1974 were released. On the 10th,
Yeah.
Good Old Boys by Randy Newman, one of the great all-time singer-songwriters.
Oh, for sure.
On the 13th, Ronnie Wood would declare, I've got my own album to do, the title of his solo debut.
Yeah.
And he had people on it from the Faces. I think Rod Stewart uh, sang one of the songs on the album, including members of his band to be the Stones. I think Keith Richards played on the album as well. So so there's that.
Yeah.
Ronnie Wood, his solo effort. Late for the Sky, Jackson Browne,
Ah, there we go. Yep.
also on the
Classic,
13th.
classic effort.
And Nightbirds by LaBelle. This is I believe this is the Lady Marmalade album.
Okay.
Uh, no guarantee on that, but it was one of their more successful efforts. And again, um, Rolling Stones places it among the best of the year.
Yeah. I have something then for the 28th.
I got something for
Uh,
the 15th.
well, go ahead then. Please go.
Gary Thane of Uriah Heep was shocked on stage at the Moody Coliseum in Dallas, seriously injured. Now, we were just talking about rock and rollers who died in planes. Rock and rollers who died on stage from being electrocuted.
This has happened. This happened in this era.
It's happened, and people that survive electrocution, even more. Probably Les Harvey of Stone the Crow, a Scottish rock band. He died in
Okay.
1972.
Yep.
Uh, Killed on stage when he touched his microphone with wet hands. Uh, this whole electric, rock and roll is driven by electricity, and
Well,
it's kind of a
I
wild
think,
force, no matter how much we try to.
well, it seems like, I mean, it seems like, wow, that's unbelievable.
Um, Ace Ace Frehley was electrocuted, or well, electrocuted. I think sounds fatal. Suffered an electric shock on stage. Um, George Harrison, we see it on Let It Be or on Get Back, the rooftop concert. He has a shock. Moby, Keith Richards had a shock that knocked him several feet back with a blue arc of electrical energy. But I think he was so drunk he probably didn't even feel it.
Well, that seems a little, come on now.
Oh, well, yeah, that's quite a stretch talking about Keith Richards, that he might have been drunk or somehow stoned. Yeah.
But so inebriated, so out of it that he did not recognize the fact that he had been thrown back by an electric shock does seem, I mean, I don't know.
All right. It was hyperbole. I'll grant you that.
Okay. Oh, well then, sometimes I'm just not able to see it. The hyperbole. It's so camouflaged.
Hey, on the 19th, Jimmy Fallon was born.
Huh.
How about that?
Well, oh God.
Well,
Hallelujah.
so you have something else
Oh,
here.
I do. I have something on the 28th. So one of the things to recognize about the presidency of Gerald Ford was that his wife, Betty Ford, was in her own way a kind of trailblazer. She was a remarkably candid woman who talked about um, her children and her children's, smoked grass. Children. She was open to the notion of people living together before marriage, which in an era when this was still quite controversial. She also um, publicly disclosed in mid-September that she had breast cancer, and on the 28th, then she had a full mastectomy. And What's, I guess, noteworthy about this is that this was still an era where women did not talk about breast cancer, that this was considered a kind of taboo
It's
topic
it's
publicly.
unthinkable that a first lady before her would have revealed something like that.
I guess that's right. I mean, I think but her candor in this regard, and her support of testing, really opened up this issue. And now, so we see her here with her husband in the hospital. Coming out of the surgery and recovery, then she would become addicted to painkillers and would be public about her addiction and help to establish substance rehab facilities that bear her name, the Betty Ford Centers. And so, it's you can say what you will about the Ford presidency, and a lot of it was nondescript, but Betty Ford moved the needle, and she really, I think, in her own way, kind of changed America in some really, I think, important ways. Really, an incredibly courageous woman. So that's what I have for the 28th.
And speaking of nondescript presidencies, sometimes it's just a relief to have a nondescript presidency after something like
Well,
presidency that brings you Watergate and scandal and where you're every day that you're following the news, it's some new awful thing.
yeah.
Just to have something 4 years where nothing happens, it's just like, oh well, yeah.
Well, don't, yeah. Well, this is we got. Uh, I'm sorry you raised that at this moment, but yeah, a nondescript presidency sometimes is not the worst thing. Something to look forward to.
Listen, I'm going to go back one day on the
Go
26th
back, mister. Go back.
because we had a couple albums come out. Serenade by Neil Diamond with Longfellow Serenade, of course, and El Dorado by ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, came out on the 20th.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. It's an interesting group. And those mid 70 albums, El Dorado, Face the Music, New World Record, those are terrific albums.
Man,
Very inventive. You know,
I was, yeah, huge ELO fan back in the day. Uh, they came out with stuff that you weren't hearing elsewhere.
yeah. I mean, El Dorado features, I believe this is right. Can't Get It Out of My Head, right? And so,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
probably
one
the
of them.
best.
Yeah,
Probably
it's
the best.
sublime. It's extraordinary.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Couple more albums that came out sometime during the month was Robert Palmer's solo debut, Sneaking Sally Through the
Sally
Alley,
Through the Alley. Yeah. Huh?
and
Uh,
Bonnie Raitt's Streetlights, another one of the 74 best albums of
yeah.
the year. So
Awesome. Does that get us to October
it
then?
does. Brings us right up to
Uh, I have something for the 2nd of October,
well, King
but you
Crimson
have something.
kicks off the month on the first by releasing Red.
Hmm.
Um, and this is also one of the 74 bests, as is on the second, Al Green Explores Your Mind,
Yeah.
uh, with his hit, what's it?
Shalala,
Shalala,
shalala, make me happy.
shalala, make me happy. Um,
Which,
both of those, Red and Al Green Explores Your Mind, were on the list of Rolling Stone's 74 best.
yeah, I also have something for the 2nd. Major League Baseball in what was considered a really groundbreaking move in Major League Baseball. The then known Cleveland Indians, hire Frank Robinson to lead the club right at the end of the 74 season, just a couple of days left in it. Robinson, of course, is noteworthy because of his Hall of Fame career, really one of the great players of the 60s and early 70s. But he was the first black manager in some 25 years after Jackie Robinson broke the so-called color barrier playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Um, this was um, this was considered a long overdue move. Well, Robinson's tenure with the Indians was a short one. This is oftentimes the case with managers. Um, this cemented his status as one of the most important, certainly one of the most important baseball players of the 20th century. We've got Frank Robinson managing the Indians at the tail end of the '74 season.
Sure. On the 4th, we had a couple big albums come out. On the 4th, we have a couple of important albums come out. The Who comes out with Odds and Sods. What is Odds and Sods?
It's a little of this, isn't it? Like B-sides and I can't really, I don't own it.
Yeah,
I think Slip Kids is on it,
could very well be.
which
Also a
is but
compilation, but yeah, outtakes and rarities.
yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So yeah. And we have Walls and Bridges, John Lennon's I'd say main album
Okay.
from the Lost Weekend.
Oh well, yeah, I think that's right.
Uh,
Yes.
but not his only one. His oldies cover that he started off with on.
That's that rock and roll album. We I start yeah with Phil Spector. I'm not sure that Spector produced all of the. I mean, that was quite a fraught session, but yeah, the oldies album.
Yeah, like, Phil, can you leave your pistol at home next time? Yeah, the oldies album, and I think his accident mid-year ended
That's right.
his work on that album.
That's right.
Spector's accident. It was in a car accident, and but anyway, that came out too. Um, Walls and Bridges charts at number one on the strength of whatever gets you through the night, um, and number nine, Dream, partially. It would be Lennon's last album of original material until 1980 with Double Fantasy.
It just pains you to say it.
It does
So
make me think. Yeah. Mm.
you're not wrong about many things, but I think you're wrong about Double Fantasy.
Yeah.
But there we go. I mean,
You're not alone in thinking that.
yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm oftentimes with the masses with these kinds of things, but yeah. So Double Fantasy is pretty good.
On the 5th,
Uh, yes.
Beat and Fleece, Van Morrison's
Oh, yeah, that's right.
came out. Also one of the 74 best of 74. Um, and AC/DC performs its first show with its new
Right.
lead singer, Bon Scott.
Yeah.
On the 11th,
Um, yeah.
Beat Life Serenade by Billy Joel. Fantastic. War Child by Jethro Tull on the 14th. So that's what I have for the first couple weeks of the month.
Well, I just have something real quick for the 15th. The 15th, President Ford signs the bill creating the Federal Election Commission. Um, this was an amendment to the Federal Election Campaign Act of '71. There was real hope in the wake of Watergate that the Federal Election Commission could help clean up campaigns, and I guess maybe it did, at least for a while. There's never a lot of teeth with the FEC, and the teeth have been largely removed in recent years. But Ford, keeping to his pledge of trying to make American elections more transparent, creates the FEC on the 15th.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I don't think most Americans thought that the problem was that our elections were not transparent enough or not fair enough. I don't think that was part of the criticism of the government that one had been hearing for a couple of years. But okay, never a bad idea, right?
I I mean, okay, yeah, I mean,
So
the elections in the United States are peculiar. Again, while there is a federal election commission, the elections are held by the individual states. and the individual states then control basically everything about the elections,
And
the
verify
rules,
and the whole
all
thing.
that. So it's just the United States is it's in a peculiar position of having federal institutions, federal the Congress and a president and all that. But it comes from the states, and the states are different, and the states see things differently. It's an odd situation.
Um, Also on the 15th, we have The Heart of Saturday Night by Tom Waits comes out. Again, one of the best albums of 74.
Yeah,
And on the 18th, It's Only Rock and Roll by the Rolling Stones is released. Something else that happens on the 18th, we've already had an opportunity to mention Al Green at the beginning of the month. His
this
record,
is bad.
his
Yeah,
album came out, but on the 18th, he's attacked
yeah,
while
yeah,
taking a bath by his girlfriend, his living girlfriend,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
um, uh,
yeah.
Mrs. Mary Woodson. She's a
That's right.
29-year-old mother of three,
Yep.
and she had cooked some grits, and she brought the pan of grits in and just threw them on him. Uh,
Yep. That's
Scalding,
exactly right.
boiling grits. And then walks out of the bathroom into the living room and shoots herself.
Yeah, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. But it's a transformative moment for Green, right? He A moment of great, humiliation, and but he uses it to sort of change his ways, and in a sense, sort of turns his back for a while on his recording career, embracing religion and all that.
The Reverend.
The Reverend, the very Reverend Al Green, for sure.
Um, Moving on the 25th, just a week later, three big albums come out. Crime of the Century by Supertramp.
That's an incredible album.
An
Incredible album.
incredible album. Their first, I think, really big album.
Yeah, I think that's right. An incredible group. I have to say, I mean, once again, where's Supertramp in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well,
How's that even possible?
and a decade later in college, just about everybody that I hung out with had that record in their collection, Crime of the Century.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of the great records of the 70s. No question.
Um, Bob Marley came out with his first solo effort, Natty Dread,
Yep.
on the 25th. And the Moody Blues came out with a compilation of their own. This is the Moody Blues.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
do you
I
have
have
anything
something
at the end?
I have something at the end. I have on the 30th. Let's dateline Kinshasa Zaire. Um, Muhammad Ali squares off against George Foreman, heavyweight championship of the world, and the so-called Rumble in the Jungle. Ali gains a TKO over Foreman in the eighth round and regains the heavyweight title. Ali, of course, had been chasing the title for years, and it's a remarkable moment. The this the Rumble in the Jungle is documented in a film called When We Were Kings, which was released in the 90s. It's one of the great documentaries of all time, When We Are Kings. And it is not just a boxing film, but it talks, really gives you insight into both Foreman and Ali's personality. And it's worth noting, though, that Foreman will, 20 years later, as a aging fighter, regain the heavyweight title when he beats Michael Moore, becoming the oldest heavyweight champion. Now, Foreman is a fascinating figure in himself, and so, but this is sort of Ali's hurrah in a way. The rest of the '70s are less kind to Ali for sure in the ring, but the Rumble in the Jungle is a incredible cultural event, and
Just to
people
follow up,
all over the world were paying attention to it.
when Frazier beat Michael Moore and got the title back,
Well, yeah, when Foreman beat Michael Moore, got the title
that
back. Yeah,
that's when Michael Moore left boxing and went on to make documentaries.
you just can't help yourself. Yeah, that's right. That was that. Yeah, so
That's
Michael Moore turned his back on the ring and
yeah.
started to make an acclaimed series of documentaries. Yeah,
Boxing Boss is the documentary films
I
came.
mean, I mean, Michael Moore, say what you will, that he has the dimensions of a heavyweight.
Okay. Yeah,
So
no,
there we go.
right.
Rumble in the Jungle on the 30th of October.
And we have a few other albums that appeared during the month. Ohio Players came out with Climax. Ozark Mountain Daredevils released It'll Shine When It Shines. Spooky Tooth
Yes.
released The Mirror. And the first appearance of Susie Quattro with Quattro. Um, a, a likable singer. I had a chance to see her recently and I blew it. She came to Marburg.
Oh, come on. Susie Quattro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, she died, right?
Um, I don't.
I believe she died shortly after that, actually. It's
Okay. Well,
so
I'm
I blew the
I
last
did.
chance to see her.
My goodness.
Which brings us to November.
Yeah. So what do you have in early November, Dave?
Autobahn. Fahren auf die Autobahn.
It's such an interesting album. Really, it's Kraftwerk, right? It's
Kraftwerk, yeah.
a real super important group that spearheaded the so-called krautrock movement. You know,
That
you
was their
have
fourth album.
Neu and Khan and all that. Yeah, it's their fourth album, but it was their big album in the U.S.
Yes, and it really broke the conventions. And certainly not the sort of thing that you were hearing on the radio
Oh, that's for sure.
anywhere else. So,
That is for sure. Yeah, really interesting. As we record this, Kraftwerk is on tour in the United States and going to be appearing close, actually in Kansas City. And so I've
okay.
given some thought to going to see them.
Well, let me
It'd
know if
be,
you do.
Guess I
Uh,
will.
Also on the
Kraftwerk.
first, another German band, Scorpions, came out with Fly to the Rainbow. Of course,
The Shinkers.
yeah, the difference is, of course, that Scorpions sang English lyrics instead of their native German.
Yeah, and that would pay big dividends for them
Oh,
in
yeah.
the late 70s and into the early 80s. Yeah, they were yeah. I mean, it's a
Scorpions, the most successful German rock band ever, I think.
oh, I have to be.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think that's right.
Uh, on the second, George Harrison launched his George Harrison and Friends North American tour in Vancouver. It
Mhm.
was the first North American tour by a Beatle since the band's August 1966 tour.
That's right. That's interesting. Yes, it would have been.
That's all I have in the
They,
first week.
yeah. Okay. So I have something for the eighth. And so a couple of years earlier, of course, we had the Kent State incident where the Ohio National Guard opened fire on a group of student protesters, killing four and wounding many others. In the fall of 74, then the court case was making its way through the federal system, and on November 8th, federal judge Frank Battisti rules that the eight Ohio National Guardsmen who are on trial for violating the civil rights of Kent State students, they should be acquitted. And so they walked. No one was ever held, I mean, legally ever held to account for the Kent State incident. Any effort to for criminal and civil charges fell short. And so this is one of the yeah, I mean, this is one of the benchmarks of the Vietnam era, and it comes to a this kind of comes to a not with a bang, but not with a bang, but with a whimper here on
An,
the 8th
an
as the
ignoble,
guardsmen walk.
an
I think that's
ignoble
fair.
outcome.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right.
Also on the 8th, it's a little bit more pleasant. We have all sorts of things. We have Elton John's Greatest Hits, one of my first albums that I ever had. Fantastic,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
fantastic
yeah.
stuff. Um, we have Nightlife by Thin Lizzy came out on that date,
Oh, a terrific band. My God, Thin Lizzy's so good.
Mhm. As did the live album Saturnite by Cat Stevens. Sheer Heart Attack by Queen,
Oh,
the second Queen album that's appeared this year with Killer Queen on it, one of my all-time favorites.
yeah, and kind of a breakout. It was kind of a breakout single for them, right? I mean, this is Killer. I mean, they had some modest success before, but Killer Queen is what got a lot of people to start to think, listen to Queen.
Yeah. Last but not least, a Stormbringer by Deep Purple also came out on the 8th. So a
Yeah,
huge day for rock releases.
no question, no question. I don't have anything until the end of the month.
On the 11th, Propaganda by Sparks. On the 15th, Roxy Music with Country Life. And one of Sweet's best albums, Desolation Boulevard.
Oh God, it's never missed an opportunity
I love
Desolation Boulevard. I know
I
you
loved
love
Sweet,
Sweet.
and I still
I
do.
know you
I,
do.
I
I know you
make
do.
no apologies for that. I think they're fantastic.
And so Desolation Boulevard is, I mean, it's one of Sweet's best.
Good Night
Yeah, I
Vienna
mean,
came out from Ringo Starr. John
I
Lennon
always,
was actively involved in the
yeah,
production of that.
yeah, I think he wrote the title track. It's,
Yes, I think that's right.
I always really liked that particular song.
He was,
Ringo is very prolific.
for somebody who's having a meltdown, he's being incredibly productive, John Lennon.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair.
And Badfinger, Wish You Were Here. So this is that. hmm, I believe this is Badfinger's second album for Columbia and last album, period.
Okay.
So it's
No,
yeah, the swan song
this comes to the
for
end. Yeah.
for a
Okay.
fantastic band,
Oh, agreed.
fantastic and fantastically unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of bad luck surrounding that band. I have something for the 28th.
Well, Lyndon Ronstadt came out with Heart Like a Wheel on the
Mhm.
19th,
Yeah.
and Genesis came out with The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway on the
This is
22nd.
yeah, so this is okay, so this is the Peter Gabriel well, this is his kind of magnum opus with the group. This will also be, of course, the last album he records with them, and then the group goes in a very interesting direction, different direction. The Lamb has its fans, it has lots of detractors. It is
It has lots of detractors. That surprises me.
oh, it has lots of detractors.
Okay.
It has lots of detractors, but it's a but I think Gabriel thought this is really as far as he could go with the band, and he then creates a very interesting path as a solo artist.
Oh
But the
man.
Lamb is fascinating.
Well, I would probably also argue that that solo Peter Gabriel is more interesting than the entire career of Genesis.
Well, I you just you're simply doing that to bait me, and
Well,
so
well, or put down comments below if
yeah,
you
well,
agree or if
okay.
you
Well,
agree.
I mean, again,
We're happy to hear from you.
you're right about lots of things, but you're again wrong about this. So
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. Mhm.
Anyway, on the 28th, you say. That,
I on the
that was
28th. Yes.
Thanksgiving that year,
Yes,
November
it
28th.
was. Yes, it was. And well, so you know what I'm going to talk about. So this
But
is
I
the
do.
bet.
But I
Yeah,
do.
this is the bet. So this is again the aforementioned Lost Weekend. Elton John was a constant companion of John Lennon. Spent some time in the studio recording. So Elton John was assisting Lennon with several songs, including one "Whatever Gets You Through the Night." Lennon, I think, was sort of indifferent to the song, whereas Elton John thought it was a hit, a big hit, and they bet. And the bet was again that if the song reached number one, that Lennon would appear on stage alongside John in Madison Square Garden, next time he's on tour there in New York City. It hits number one, and true to his word, Lennon, after I think some vomiting or something, right? Some
Yeah.
nervous moments
Yeah. Bernie Taupin pretty much has to shove him onto the stage. He was very nervous.
but it was a tremendous moment, kind of large scale kind of concert experience for Lennon. That this will be the last time an audience gets to see him in this way. He will
And
perform
he was
live the next
joyously received,
year.
ecstatically
Um,
received by that.
oh yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, there was tremendous pent up energy and goodwill for Lennon, and I think people were as you're suggesting, just overwhelmed. But yet the joyous nature of it, it's hard not to have a certain sense of melancholy here, because this really will be the last time that American audiences will see Lennon in concert this way. Lennon will perform live one other time in the spring of '75 for British television, but on a big venue like this is it. This is the last time that Lennon will appear. And so, yeah, November 28th, 1974 is for those who are interested in Lennon history is a big and kind of a sad day in a way.
Yeah, indeed. So that was Thanksgiving Day. The rest of the month is also got some got some important stuff. We have a solo effort by Cream's Jack Bruce,
Yeah.
Out of the Storm. We have Sedaka's Back, a compilation of Neil Sedaka's work. He has basically come out of, I don't know,
Right.
retirement or seclusion or whatever,
Yeah.
and is really interested in getting back in the scene. And he's going to come out with stuff like Bad Blood, fantastic song, also with Elton John.
That's right.
Going to work with Captain Tennille.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
we're part of their Love Will Keep Us Together toward the end. The background singers, the chorus singers sing, Sadaka is back.
Yeah, in celebration of the Brill building master, right? Neil Sedaka is back, and so yeah, this is the kind of coming out party for Sedaka. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll also have two of the albums that were listed as the 74 best. Soon Over Babaluma by Can. I am not familiar with this album at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But also Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy. Brian Eno, his second album of the year, both of which appear on that list.
Mhm.
And then Where We All Belong, a double LP by Marshall Tucker Band. Half of it, one LP is studio and the other half is live.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it for November.
Yeah. So, what do you have? What do you have for early December of '74?
Got nothing in the first week, but on the 9th, George Harrison comes out with Dark Horse. Um, on the 10th, Meg White is born. Um, the
Yeah.
Jack White's
Well,
wife
careful.
or ex-wife at this point, but drummer and singer for the White Stripes.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Uh,
Uh,
on the 12th,
all right. Yeah.
two things happen. You're going to talk about one of them.
I think so.
But Mick Taylor leaves the Rolling Stones after 6 years, and I know that makes you very sad.
Well, I mean, the Mick Taylor years were the best years.
Yeah.
So I know, yeah, he added a lot to the Stones, but his contributions were substantial, and the albums that he participated in are, I think, the Stones' best. Also on the 12th, then, in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, the governor of Georgia, one Jimmy Carter, announces audaciously his campaign for president of the United States. It's
You know what? I
he
think
is
it's fair to say that more people took Donald Trump seriously when he came down the escalator than people took Carter seriously when he announced.
well, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's probably right. I mean, this was just I don't know what people thought. I think this is just a kind of exercise in I don't know. I mean, an ego kind of flex or something. But Carter, he hit pay dirt. He hit pay dirt, and his campaign gained traction. And amazingly, he made it into the White House. But he announces it in December of '74.
Well, there's Amy, and there's Mama Carter on the left there. Oh, you're frozen again. God damn it. Holy moly. We gotta get through December and get this thing finished up.
Do
Oh,
we have anything for Carter?
um, yeah, we got some of it. We got the start. What else did you want to say about him?
All right.
I was
Okay.
I was just commenting on who else was in the
I
picture.
got nothing else to
Amy
say about him.
and Ma Carter. Um,
Oh yeah, Miss Lillian and all that. Yeah.
but
Right.
all right. Well, um, so
I'm getting a message that your bandwidth is low.
yeah, fuck. Yeah, let's just try to push through here. Um, yeah, a couple days later, the 14th, big day for album releases. We have Joe Walsh's So What? Grand Funks, All the Girls in the World Beware, triple exclamation mark. Um, Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge, who were at that time a romantic couple, come out with Breakaway. And Jimmy Cliff, uh, enjoying, I think, probably about the zenith of his career
Yeah,
around
I
this
think that's right.
time, came out with House of Exile. So that was the 14th.
I just real quickly, I have on the 19th, Nelson Rockefeller is sworn in as Gerald Ford's vice president. Nelson Rockefeller, the part representing the liberal wing, and there was a liberal wing of the Republican Party. He was a controversial figure and would be so controversial and considered a kind of unelectable that he would be actually dropped from the ticket in 1976. But he has thirsted for the presidency almost his entire adult life. He gets as close as vice president. So Nelson Rockefeller is sworn in on the 19th. Also on the 19th, real quickly, Gerald Ford signs the Presidential Recordings and Materials Preservation Act because there is great concern that Nixon and his associates are still destroying material
Oh,
from their time in the White House. And so the law then puts the anything that is produced by a president in the hands of a kind of national archivist who operates in the General Services Administration. This would again become an issue during the first Trump administration, where staffers would be pulling shredded pieces of paper out of the toilet and out of the trash, because again, everything that a president produces is archival material. And but this is where the law comes from, signed on the 19th, December 19th of 74.
Yes, as an idea, it's a very good one, and probably
Well,
would be excellent if or to the extent that it is actually
well,
enforced.
well, it's, and I think with only a few exceptions over the years, I think presidents have largely adhered to it. But where there's a recent president had some trouble with it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things. But
It's one of those things.
December seems to be at least the second half, not a whole lot going on. I don't have anything until the 31st.
Go ahead. I'm out. So go ahead. What's happening on the 31st?
On the 31st, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks join Fleetwood Mac.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And that is huge.
It will be. It
Well,
definitely will be.
and I know that blues fans
Oh,
will
you're
just
going to
want,
make it.
yeah, I'm going to
Come
say it.
on.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it.
Just, there's just no reason for this, Dave. You just don't have to do this. But go
I'm,
ahead. You're going to
I'm not
say
trying
it.
to antagonize people. I'm just saying, for me, this is the point at which Fleetwood Mac became interesting.
Yeah, come
A,
on.
a huge band, a British blues band, uh, and rightly appreciated by blues fans. Not trying to take anything away from that. I'm just saying, for me, this is
No,
where
I would
Fleetwood
say,
Mac became the band to watch and to follow.
well, there we go. And so, yes. And I think, right. I mean, the proof is in the pudding on some level with
And
that.
and and, and if you're upset about that, just tell us about it in the comments. That's fine. Um,
But
Also on the 31st, third annual New Year's Rockin' Eve, um, moved from NBC to ABC this year, and had performances by Herbie Hancock, the Beach Boys, Chicago, Olivia Newton-John, and the Doobie Brothers. That's a lineup.
that's pretty good. That's the Dick Clark thing, right? The New
Yes,
Year's Rockin' Eve.
yes, yeah.
I mean, for a Dick
And
Clark show, it's a
he
pretty
was
good
doing
lineup.
that. He did that for decades.
Oh, yeah, he
Like
definitely did.
right
Now,
briefly before he died, he was still doing that.
yes, he was, even when he was impaired by a stroke, he was still doing it. And so, yeah, yeah, there we go.
But with a lineup like that, yeah, well, really not much
Well,
you can say against it.
it's pretty solid. Yeah, agreed.
So that's
So that's
the
it.
year in music and social news and politics from 1974. That
Yeah,
wraps up this year-end session of 50 years ago this month. If you enjoyed this episode, enjoyed this video, we hope you did, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to Steve and Dave's yet, you can do that right here. You can watch the first part of this year-end review right up here. And as always, you'll want to check out the playlist. It has a good selection of some of the best music of 1974 right here.
there we go. And so we're also on Blue Sky and we're posting new content every day. So Stephen Dave's one on Blue Sky. So join us there. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.